My dear brothers and sisters and my young friends, greetings. My name is Radha Sukhani. I am a medical doctor by profession. Today we are going to talk about how to make our bones strong and how to prevent osteoporosis. Now, osteoporosis is a disease where the bones become weak, porous, spongy, lose calcium, and break easily. By natural designs, humans start losing their calcium from the bones after the age of 60. But in the modern city population, the calcium loss is excessive and it occurs prematurely. So osteoporosis and weak muscles occur at a much earlier age. Why is that? There are two reasons for that. Food is not natural and holistic, and the lifestyle is not balanced. There's not enough calcium in our diet. There's not enough sunlight exposure, so there's deficiency of vitamin D. There's not enough exercise, so bones and muscles are weak. Now, calcium and vitamin supplements are plenty in the market, but most of them lack the quality and they are excessive in quantity, so they end up doing more harm than good. So what we are going to talk about today is how to keep our bones strong and how to prevent osteoporosis naturally. When to take calcium and vitamin D supplements, how much and what kind. And when do the doctors give medical remedies beyond calcium and vitamin D? Those of you who are interested in the written materials on this subject, they can go to our website www.foodlifestylebalance.com. The current video which you are watching is also posted on this website. Now, as I said, osteoporosis is a disease where the bones become weak, they become spongy, they become porous, there is less calcium, and they break easily. Naturally, as I said, humans start losing some calcium from their bone over the age of 65 in females and over the age of 70 in males. The effect of calcium loss is maximum on our spine. So at the age of 40 years, the spine is straight. At the age of 60, it starts curving a little. And at the age of 80, it's curved quite a bit. And you start losing your height. If you are losing your height more than 1 inch per year, it means you are getting osteoporosis, you're losing too much calcium, and you must do something about it. Now, there are 3 bones in the body which are most affected by osteoporosis and which break easily when there is osteoporosis. These bones are wrist bones, hip bone, and the spine. So if there is fracture at any one of the sites, the doctors immediately will do your DEXA scan to find out if you are low on calcium in your bones. Now, bone health and muscle health are intertwined. They are twins. Strong muscles build strong bones. And if muscles are weak, the bones are weak. So they go together. When the muscles contract, they pump blood and nutrition into the bones. And when the muscles are not contracting, not enough nutrients are going to the bone. So you may take all the calcium and vitamin D in the world. It will not make you strong bones if your body is not moving, is not active. So premature, untimely osteoporosis is a food and lifestyle disease, and that's what we're going to talk about. Now, our bone health, strength of the bones, and its calcium content changes through our lifetime. The maximum bone strength and maximum calcium in the bones, called bone density or bone mass, is at the age of 20 to 30 years. After that, it starts declining in women more than men. Reason being, women bear the burden of childbirth and lactation. So bone mass at the age of 20 to 30 years is our fixed deposit, which will help us prevent osteoporosis in future life. But that fixed deposit will not come to you unless your childhood has been very active. In childhood, there is natural plant-based food in plenty, there is sunlight in plenty, and there is activity and exercise outdoors. If you give that to your child, the child will have good fixed deposit for future and will not suffer osteoporosis. On the other hand, if the child is stuck indoors, connected to TV and computer games all the time, eating unnatural factory made foods rich in salt and sugar, then the bones will be weak. No sunlight, no vitamin D, and osteoporosis at a very early age. Now, to build strong bones, we have to have basic knowledge. Knowledge empowers us to solve a problem. Lack of knowledge makes us powerless. So, what knowledge we should have? Why does osteoporosis occur prematurely? How do we increase calcium in our bones naturally? How increase vitamin D in our body naturally? We may eat all the calcium in the world, but if there is not enough vitamin D in the body, that calcium will not be absorbed, that calcium will not get to the bones. So normal vitamin D is a key to strong bones. Now, how do we know that there is a deficiency of calcium and vitamin D in the body? How do the doctors confirm the diagnosis of osteoporosis? What tests do they do? Then, how to prevent premature osteoporosis? Very important. Prevention is better than cure. When to take calcium and vitamin D supplements, what kind, and how much amount? Very important, critically important. When it comes to calcium and vitamin D, the more is not better, but the correct medication is the one which we need in the right amounts. And when does one need medical remedies beyond calcium and vitamin D? And why does premature osteoporosis occur? One of the common cause in modern population, city population, is too much salt intake, too much salt in the diet because there's too much consumption of snacks, packaged snacks, fried snacks. They're all very rich in salt. So know that when there's too much salt in the body, it is excreted by kidneys into the urine. And the problem is that when salt is excreted through the urine, it takes calcium along with it. So more the salt in your diet, more will be the loss of calcium in the urine. And deficiency of calcium means bones more porous, less calcium in the bones. Now, weight has a bearing on our bone health. Extremes of weight means weak muscles and weak bones. So if your body mass index is less than 19, you are very skinny, you have less muscles, you will get osteoporosis. And if your body mass index is over 30, you're obese, then also your muscles will be weak and you will get premature osteoporosis. Now, another third reason for premature osteoporosis in city dwellers is too much of unhealthy drinks, which are acidic. Too much of coffee and tea, more than 2 cups a day, sodas, alcohol, and smoking. Among sodas, the worst sodas are the sodas which are brown in color, because these sodas are highly acidic. And more acid in the body means more bone loss, and I'll talk about it a little later. Now, as I said, more acidic drinks and acidic foods in the body, more the osteoporosis. Now, all the natural plant-based foods like vegetables and fruits, they're alkaline. Our body is alkaline. But when our body gets acidic, it pulls out calcium carbonate from the bones. I'll tell you shortly. Now, what are the acidic foods which will make our bones weak? Meat, too much meat, and too much milk, especially dense milk products such as cheese, paneer, etc. Milk, 1 glass, is healthy, but when you exceed more than that amount, then you have too much of saturated fat and you are inviting diseases like diabetes, obesity, and heart disease. So milk in moderation is the key. Even our Ayurveda supports that if you consume more milk, you will lose your health. Now, the other acidic foods in the modern diet are excessive white sugar, excessive refined wheat flour, and like maida and the baked products which are very rich in refined wheat flour. Sweets, chocolate, and other sweetmeats which are very popular with the Indian population. And then I already talked about acidic drinks such as too much tea, coffee, sodas, alcohol, etc. So you will be amazed to know that highest incidence of osteoporosis is in the Western countries where they consume a lot of meat and milk. Now, meat and milk leave a acidic residue in the body, and our bodies are alkaline. So when there is more acidic residue in the body tries to bring a balance by moving calcium carbonate from the bones. Calcium carbonate is body's storehouse of alkali. So more acidic foods and drinks, more the calcium is mobilized from the bones and lost in the urine. So more the meat, more the dairy, more the calcium loss in the urine. Now, I would say the fifth cause of osteoporosis among city dwellers is acid reflux disease and the acid reflux medications. Now, acid reflux disease is an epidemic in city population because wrong foods are eaten frequently and too late in the night. So there is acidity naturally. And then they are on acid-lowering medications such as Pepcid, Zantac, Prilosec, Tums, and so forth. When you lower the acidity of the stomach, there is a big problem because very important essential elements such as calcium, magnesium, iron, and B12 depend on stomach acidity for absorption. So if you take these medications for longer than 2 to 3 months, you can develop many problems. Osteoporosis because of lack of calcium, anemia because of lack of iron, nerve damage because of lack of B12, and muscle cramps because of lack of magnesium and calcium. So if your muscles are cramping in the night or untimely manner, then think that you are low on magnesium and calcium. As I said, bones and muscles are intertwined. They are twins. Strong muscles bring strong bones. And if you are not moving, you're not exercising, you may take all the calcium and vitamin D in the world and your bones will not get it. Finally, the most important cause of osteoporosis among city dwellers is lack of sunlight. Vitamin D is also called sunshine vitamin, and it meets 80% of the body's need of vitamin D. And the best time to get sunlight is in the morning hours, 30 minutes to 60 minutes. That's all you need to normalize your vitamin D. But city dwellers, almost 80% of them are deficient in vitamin D. So if we want to increase calcium in our body, we have to eat a diet which is rich in calcium. And the best source of calcium in our diet is natural plant-based foods. Dairy in small amounts is good, but in larger amounts, as I said, it causes other problems because of high amount of saturated fat in it. So the best way to take dairy is 1 glass of milk or 8 ounces of milk worth of curds, chaach, or yogurt, because curds have lactase enzyme and Asians lack the lactase enzyme and they get a lot of indigestion out of milk if they drink milk straight. So the best preparation of milk for Asian Indian population is dahi and chaach, curd and buttermilk. So 1 8-ounce glass of milk will provide you 300 milligram of calcium. 1 cup of cooked spinach will give you 150 milligram of calcium. Soya bean, 1 cup will give you 175 milligram of calcium. Lentils and legumes, half a cup, 100 gram, will give you 200 milligram of calcium. A fistful of nuts will give you 80 milligram of calcium, and just 2 teaspoonfuls of sesame seeds, chia seeds, and poppy seeds will give you 80 milligram of calcium. So a great treat for increasing calcium and phosphate in the body, which is a bone powerhouse, is sesame jaggery laddu. And jaggery has extra advantage. Darker the jaggery, more the iron, more the phosphate. So it makes calcium phosphate, which is very good for our bones. Now, what kind of milk you are drinking will determine how much calcium and vitamin D you are getting. If your milk is coming from desi cow, which is Gir cow or Brahmin cow, it is roaming in the pastures, getting sunlight, eating green grass. So it gets plenty of calcium and vitamin D because calcium is in the grass, in the green grass, in the soil. And desi cow gives only 4 to 6 liters of milk. So its milk is very rich in calcium and vitamin D. Exactly on the other hand, farm dairy milk has practically hardly much of vitamin D and is very low on calcium. Simply because it is not eating grass, it is not roaming in the sunlight. So it doesn't get any one of the natural sources of calcium and vitamin D. Plus, a dairy cow gives as much as 60 to 65 liters of milk. So do not expect much of calcium and vitamin D from farm dairy milk. And the Western milk industry has already realized it. So they fortify the milk with calcium and vitamin D. They put calcium and vitamin D in the milk so that it gets its appropriate amount of calcium and vitamin D. But it is not natural. So you want natural calcium and vitamin D, you have to drink appropriate kind of milk. Now, how much calcium do we need from our diet? An adult needs about 600 milligram of calcium. A growing child, a pregnant woman, and a lactating woman needs twice as much. And once you grow older beyond 65, calcium absorption in the stomach is less because stomach acidity is less as the age grows. So older people will require more calcium in their diet. Do remember that natural supplements of calcium, which come to us from natural plant-based foods, are the best sources of calcium, not the calcium carbonate tablets and supplements. Now, vitamin D, the best source again is natural sunlight. So sunlight gives us almost 80% of the vitamin D our body needs. Vegetarian sources are very poor in vitamin D. And the only vegetarian source of vitamin D is mushrooms and yeast. And you know, it's not a part of the Indian diet. The rest of the vitamin D, only 20% comes to us from our food. And that too is always animal-based food, such as milk from a good cow, ghee from a desi cow, which gives less milk and is in the natural environment. And the other source of natural vitamin D is fish. So if you are a vegetarian, you have very hard time getting vitamin D from your diet. Now, vitamin D, which we get from sunlight, has many, many advantages. Vitamin D is not a vitamin alone. It is a super hormone. It does many more things than just strengthen the bone and strengthen the muscles. It boosts our immune system so there's less disease. You know very well that coughs, colds, pneumonia, all those respiratory infections are way more common in winter because our immunity is low. There's less vitamin D. Vitamin D also saves you from depression. In those geographic areas of the world where there is no sunlight for many months together, they have a very high incidence of depression and suicides. Adequate vitamin D in the body from the natural sources such as sunlight also helps us prevent diseases like diabetes, asthma, cancer, and heart disease. So, vitamin D, natural vitamin D, sunrise vitamin D is a super vitamin and super hormone which is present in every cell of our body. Now, sunlight has more advantages than just giving us vitamin D. When the morning sun enters the eyes, it stimulates an area of the brain called hypothalamus. Hypothalamus is the seat of all the hormones in the body. It controls many hormones in the body. And these hormones are sleep hormone called melatonin, mood hormone called serotonin. As I said, when you don't have sunlight exposure, the chances of depression, anxiety are much more. That is because of deficiency of serotonin hormone. Hypothalamus also controls vitality hormone cortisol, thyroid stimulating hormone. Imagine modern city dwellers have epidemic of thyroid disease because they are not getting natural sunlight. And then insulin stimulating hormone. So if you get adequate sunlight exposure, it will prevent even diabetes. So sunlight has got such a significant effect on our health that it would be fair to say that there are all kinds of light for sight, but for health, there is only one light, and that is sunlight. Now, when the doctors want to find out how much vitamin D you have in your body, then they do vitamin D blood level. But it's difficult to find out how much calcium you have in your body by a blood test, simply because 99% of calcium in the body resides in our bones, and that is measured by a special test, which I will come to a little later. So vitamin D blood levels tell you how much vitamin D is in your body. If the vitamin D level is less than 10 nanogram per milliliter, it means you have severe deficiency of vitamin D. If it is between 10 to 20, then you have moderate deficiency of vitamin D. And if it is between the levels of 20 to 50, it's good. 30 to 50 is excellent. But do not go beyond 100 nanogram per milliliter, because then you start having symptoms of excessive vitamin D. And we'll talk about it a little later. Now, as I said, the best source of vitamin D for a human is sunlight. In fact, for all the animals in the universe, it is sunlight. And the best time for sun exposure to get vitamin D is 30 minutes after sunrise and 30 minutes before sunset. For as much as 60 minutes to 1 hour, that should be enough. How do we know that the sunlight is safe for us? Is by watching your own shadow. If your shadow standing under the sun is longer than you, then it is safe to get the sun exposure. But if your shadow is same size or shorter than your height, then it is not the right time to get the sun exposure. The sun is too strong and it will do more harm than good. Now, as you can imagine that in winter, the sun is more at an angle, so sunlight is not very strong, and the time for which you can expose your body to the sun is much longer. Now, there are certain rules to safe sun exposure for making good amount of vitamin D in the skin. As we know already, that UVB rays of the sun, when they hit the skin, then the vitamin D is synthesized in the skin. So if the skin is too much covered by clothing, then the UVB rays of the sun cannot get into the skin to make the vitamin D. So 40% of the skin must be exposed to sunlight so that you can make right amount of vitamin D in the skin. If you apply suntan lotion, especially if you have a darker skin with a lot of melanin pigment in it, then also there'll be a problem making vitamin D, because suntan lotion as well as melanin will block UVB rays penetrance into the skin. Now, duration of sun exposure depends upon the skin color. If the skin color is fair, then you don't need more than 15 to 30 minutes. If your skin is brown, you need at least 30 to 60 minutes of sun exposure for making appropriate amount of vitamin D. If the skin is very dark, then 1 to 2 hours. And in older people, little bit longer, 1 to 2 hours, because older people synthesize less of vitamin D in their skin. What are the signs of calcium and vitamin D deficiency? If you're having a lot of muscles and bone pains, especially backache, shoulder ache in your arms and legs, it could be possible that you are low on calcium and vitamin D. When there is deficiency of vitamin D, the body loses its energy. Battery is down, we can call. Lack of calcium can lead to increase in blood pressure, especially in a pregnant woman. So when pregnant woman gets high blood pressure and swelling of the feet, then calcium could be low. Now, when calcium and vitamin D deficiency is persisting for a longer time, then the nails become very unhealthy. They become brittle. There are white patches and they break easily. The hair starts falling and the hair become very thin. If you are deficient in calcium and vitamin D significantly, then you'll get osteoporosis and you'll break certain bones easily, wrist bones, hip bones, and spine. Deficiency of vitamin D leads to poor immunity and susceptibility to bacterial and viral infections. Now, how do doctors diagnose osteoporosis? They first check calcium and vitamin D levels. Now, calcium level is very difficult to do from blood alone because blood has only 1% calcium and the rest of the calcium is in our bones. So they have to do the bone test. Vitamin D level can be checked by doing a blood test, as I just described to you. To check the calcium level in the bones, doctors order a test called DEXA scan, and they look for a score on DEXA scan called T score, and T score tells how much calcium is in the bones. There are three bones area in the body where the calcium goes low faster, as I told you, the wrist, the hip, and the spine. So DEXA scan is done on these three sets of bones, and they look for T score. So when the bones become more spongy, then the T score becomes very negative. So if the T score is -1, it means green zone, your bones are healthy. If the T score is -1 to -2.5, it means bones are starting to get thin, or you have what we call as osteopenia, less calcium in the bones. And when T score is less than -2.5 on DEXA scan, it means you have bad osteoporosis. And if it is more negative than -2.5, severe osteoporosis, and you may need other medications besides calcium and vitamin D. Now, who should have DEXA scan done? Everybody doesn't have to have a DEXA scan. It's a waste of money. So DEXA scan will be required in women over 65 and men over 70, specifically if their spine starts shrinking fast and they start losing their height, as I said, more than 1 inch per year, or they break their bone easily. Younger men and women will require DEXA scan if they have bone fractures with minor injury. And I told you the three bones which break easily is wrist bones, hip bones, and the spine bone. The spine bone actually becomes so spongy that it collapses and causes severe backache. Rheumatoid arthritis patients also have very less calcium in their bones, so they will require DEXA scan at an early age. Same is true for people who have taken steroid disease for diseases such as asthma, eczema, and many other diseases where the doctors give steroids. So if you have a history of steroid intake, then you will require a DEXA scan at an early age. Now, how do we prevent osteoporosis naturally? We have to increase our calcium and vitamin D level, and the best way to get calcium in the body is natural, because the tablets or calcium supplements are not the greatest source. They are the last resort. We have to first resort to natural means of getting calcium, and that is milk in moderation. Preferably avoid dense milk products, because then you will acquire other diseases like obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. You don't want to get there. So milk only in moderation, a glass or half a glass, 8 ounces of milk as yogurt or curds. Then plant-based food is a very rich source of calcium. So lentils and legumes, vegetables, seeds and nuts. As I said, til gur laddu, sesame seed and jaggery laddus are great source of calcium. Give it to your children, 2 per day, and they will keep their bones strong. Now, to prevent osteoporosis naturally, we also need vitamin D. And the best source of vitamin D is natural sunlight, which gives us 80% of vitamin D. Only 20% comes to us from the food. Food is a very poor source of vitamin D. And to prevent calcium loss, make sure that you do not do the things we just talked about, too much of acidic drinks, acidic foods, alcohol, and smoking. But all that calcium and vitamin D, which you are taking naturally, will be of no use if you're not exercising. Because if you're not exercising and moving, then you're not bringing that calcium and vitamin D to your bones. And when I say exercise, it doesn't mean only 1 hour of exercise a day. Keep active the entire day. That's why we have this new formula, 10,000 steps a day, if you can do it. If you're older, you cannot do 10,000, at least do 4,000 to 5,000 steps a day. Now, whenever doctors suspect calcium and vitamin D deficiency, then what do? They will prescribe calcium and vitamin D. You have to be very much aware what is the safe dose of calcium and vitamin D. If you're taking 1,000 to 1,500 milligram of calcium tablets, it's too much for you, especially calcium carbonate. And I'll tell you the problems with that. And then vitamin D supplement, the best way to take is 800 to 2000 units per day, even if you are low on vitamin D. Instead of taking too much vitamin infrequently, for example, 4 to 10,000 units per day or 10,000 units per week, or sunrise vitamin D, 60,000 units per month. Because there'll be periods when your vitamin D level in the body will be too high and you start getting dizzy and nauseated and so forth from high vitamin D level. So ideal way to take vitamin D is 1,000 units per day. And if you're deficient, up to 2,000 units per day, maximum 4,000 units per day. Now, if you take too much of calcium tablets or calcium supplements, then the big problem is indigestion, especially if you're taking calcium carbonate, 1,000 to 1,500 milligram, because calcium carbonate is very hard to digest. It sits in the stomach for too long, causes indigestion. It also causes constipation. Excessive calcium supplement can lead to kidney stones and also calcium deposition in our blood vessels, especially our heart blood vessels. Now, excessive vitamin D, especially when the blood level go above 100, then you can have nausea, dizziness, confusion, fatigue, increased thirst and urination because calcium level goes up. So vitamin D in smaller doses on daily basis is the best way to take vitamin D supplements. Now, what is a safe calcium supplement? As I said, calcium carbonate, which is the most widely sold calcium supplement in the market, is not a good source of calcium. The best source of calcium supplement is calcium citrate 500 milligram because it is better absorbed and you don't have to wait for eating to take it. You can take it any time of the day because it is easily absorbed. Calcium carbonate, on the other hand, has to be taken with food because it requires a lot of stomach acid to get absorbed. Now, the safe vitamin D is natural sunlight, as I said, because it can give you 80% of your daily vitamin D requirement. It is unfortunate that India has abundant sunshine, despite that 80% of the Indian population in the cities is deficient in vitamin D, and that has been shown by International Osteoporotic Foundation. So we have to resurrect our old ancient tradition of worshipping the sun. Now, safe dose of vitamin D, as I told you, is 800 to 1,000 units per day. And if you are very deficient in vitamin D, up to 2,000, maximum 4,000 or 5,000 units. Do not go higher than that. Otherwise, you'll have high blood levels and the side effects. Now, how much vitamin D supplement I talked about? What kind? Now, there are two kinds of vitamin D preparations available in the market, vitamin D2 and vitamin D3. D3 is a better source of vitamin. It is more effective in raising your vitamin D level. So if you're going for vitamin D supplement, then go for vitamin D3, not D2. Now, why do people go for D2? Because D2 is vegan. It comes from the plants. But now we have even plant-based D3. So, as I said, the vegan source of vitamin D, which comes to us from vegetables, especially mushrooms and yeast, is, or it's called mushroom vitamin D3. It's a vegan. Those who don't want to eat meat or have animal-based vitamin D, they take D2. But recently, they have started manufacturing vitamin D3 from algae, and they mix it in olive oil or extra virgin coconut oil. Why do they put it in oil? Is simply because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. So if you want the best preparation of vitamin D3, then you have to take a preparation which has some form of fat, oil in it. Cod liver oil capsules, remember, in good old days. So now we have vegan vitamin D3 suspended in olive oil or extra virgin coconut oil. The other vitamin D3 preparation, which is most widely sold in the market, comes from the sheep oil, lanolin, sheep wool. So it is those who are very strict about vegan, for them, the vitamin D3 regularly available in the market is not a vegan source of vitamin D3. Now, which vitamin D3 preparation is the best? Hands down, sunlight is the best source of vitamin D. The natural sunlight gives us vitamin D3, And you can never overdose. You can sit in the sun for as long as you want, but you will never overdose with vitamin D3. The beauty of sunlight vitamin D is that it sits in the body for very long, up to 3 months. It is stored in the liver. Vitamin D3 tablets or supplements which we take, they will last less longer than the natural vitamin D3. And there is a risk that if you take too much of D3, then you can have very high level and signs and symptoms of overdose of vitamin D3. Vitamin D2 is a milder form of vitamin D, and as I said, it is a vegan source of vitamin D, and it does not give you much high levels, and it doesn't last in the blood for much longer. So ideally, you have to get your vitamin D3 from sunlight. And if you're taking vitamin D3 supplement, then take it in proper doses. Now, when do the doctors give medical remedies for osteoporosis beyond calcium and vitamin D? When the DEXA scan shows levels way lower than minus 2.5, you have had fractures on a minor injury, then the doctors will suggest you to take other medications such as Fosamax, Boniva, Prolia, and there are many other drugs in this line. The difficulty with these drugs is they are very high potency drugs and they have a lot of severe side effects. So your aim has to be prevent osteoporosis by natural design. So what do? Prevent osteoporosis. Best solution is build up your fixed deposit right in the childhood. Take care of your children. Make sure they have plant-based natural foods. They see enough sunlight. They spend 1 to 2 hours in the sun. They play in the sun. They stay outdoors so that they build their fixed deposit of calcium in their bones so that they do not get osteoporosis when they get older. The best source of calcium, as I said, is food. Plant-based food is the richest source of calcium. The best source of vitamin D is sunshine, morning sunlight. But both of these will not get to your bones unless you do regular exercise and you stay active the entire day. Make sure that whatever calcium you have gathered in your body is not lost by too much of tea, too much of coffee, sodas, alcohol, and too much of smoking, a lot of salt, and acid medications such as Pepcid, Zantac, Prilosec, Tums, and so forth, because they will prevent absorption of calcium. So not only get natural calcium, but change your lifestyle so that you don't lose calcium. Finally, sunlight is the eternal life source for the entire universe. It not only gives us plant-based natural food, but it gives us sunrise vitamin D. Medical research has shown that vitamin D is not just a vitamin. It is a super hormone present in every cell of our body. It not only makes our bones strong, it makes our muscles strong. It builds up our immunity and saves us from dangerous diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, fatty liver disease, and also many other problems, heart attacks, and so forth. So, if you want to stay healthy, make sure that you worship the sun every day. So, let's get back to our ancient tradition, our ancient sacred tradition of worshiping the sun. And I will conclude with my 2 lines. There are all kinds of lights for sight, but for health, there is only one light, and that is sunlight. So worship the sun every morning. Thank you.